things off, tell us who you are and what you do, that kind of stuff. We'll go from there.
Okay. I'm Jane Woods. I am a mother of 2 biological kids and 1 bonus daughter. I'm an elementary school principal, and I live on a little hobby farm with 4 dogs, 3 cats, 2 cows, 2 horses, and 4 chickens. And seasonally, 2 pigs, so.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you like animals?
I do, I love them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So you talked a little bit about how you were personally affected by COVID. Do you want to go into that a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, do you want me to tell the cow story? All right.
Go for it.
Yeah, you know, I mean, there are a lot of ways, lots of layers. The timing of this is really interesting for me. My husband unexpectedly passed away in October. He was on a trip to help his elderly mother in California and decide if she should go into assisted living or not, if she would come to Enumclaw or stay in California, go with one of his other siblings. And the night before he was supposed to come home, he just sat down on the bed and passed away at 53 years old. And it was completely out of the blue. And that morning, instead of getting up to go to the airport and pick him up, a sheriff knocked on my door and changed my whole world. It was really devastating. And then, you know, you think nothing more can happen to you. You lose your husband, your whole world changes. But no, then we have a pandemic, right? I mean, who thinks of that? That's something that happens in a movie, on a video game. It doesn't happen in real life, but no, it's happening now. You know, and it's the grief group you're attending can no longer meet in person, so it's another loss. But then there's some things that you have to keep moving forward with. You just have to. You have to move forward. And one of those things, which sounds really silly, but it was really important, is that we had to get 2 cows. And the day came, and the cows came, and they were these 2 cute little light brown cows. They were twins. They come bolting out of the trailer and into my pasture. I thought that they would be just quiet, mellow things, and they just went ballistic. And they went right to the fence line that I had really spent hours and hours researching and working on and tightening and rebuilding, and they blasted right through it. The first 3 minutes out of the trailer, they blasted right through it. Another time in my life, I would have laughed really hard about that and thought it was funny and had a totally different reaction. At this moment in my life, I just stood in the middle of my pasture and started to cry because it just felt so out of control. I felt like I lost my husband. I have to get these stupid cows. We're in a pandemic. I tried my hardest and I'm pretty good at farming things. I got that fence really tight, and these stupid cows blasted through it in the first 2 minutes. The first 2 minutes at my house, and my neighbor was out there on the fence line with his horses, and I thought, I'm such a fool. I can't do this without Tim. I'm way in over my head. I just can't do this, God. And then my neighbor looked at me and he said, Jane, and I hadn't told him, he's just far enough away, I hadn't told him that Tim had died. He had no idea. He said, Jane, I heard you might need help with your fence. And I'm just a mess. I'm in this pasture crying, and I said, I do. And he said, do you want that help right now? And I'm not a person that takes help very easily. And I said, yes. And he came right over. And my other friends who were delivering the cows got that cow back into the pasture. And that man, my neighbor, he walked the entire fence line, 5 acres of fencing and cross fencing, looking at every connection, showing me, telling me how it worked, letting me tell him the story of Tim and what our family was going through. And after he left, I just stood there and I realized, wow, God really showed up for me. He showed up in so many ways because that fence became hot and those cows calmed down. My neighbor knew my story, and he showed me a huge amount of compassion and help, something I was having trouble asking for. My friends got those cows back in and called to check up on me. and it all came back into control. Something that was so wildly out of control came back into control, and I recognized immediately how grateful I was, how totally grateful I was, because in this time that's been so hard in so many ways, I've seen God show up so many times for me. He's there all the time, and he carries me, and this is just one of those ways. I think because this is a season of grief for me, a chapter of grief in my life, the shortest verse in the Bible is one of the most powerful verses for me, and that's Jesus wept. Because I understand so clearly that he understands the brokenness I have right now, and that he stands 100% behind me. I've had some rough roads. It hasn't been a smooth ship for me. And each trial and tribulation is a chance to either separate me from my faith or bring it stronger and more clear. He knows me, and he makes that really clear in the ways that he meets me. And my job is just to be quiet, be still, and listen, and I can see it really clearly. Sometimes I do lament, and I think God wants us to lament, and it brings your relationship closer to him, and it's okay to lament. And I've learned that in this season too, through both being a widow and through the whole COVID-19 situation, that lamenting with God is a way that you can strengthen your relationship. That's real. He knows you're thinking and feeling it anyways. So I think don't deny that you're feeling something like that, but then look for those spots, look for those places where things are happening, where the positive is happening, where he's speaking to you, and sometimes that means we need to be quiet and be still. A sheriff knocked on my door and changed my whole world. It was really devastating. And then, you think nothing more can happen to you. You lose your husband, your whole world changes. But no, then we have a pandemic, right? I mean, who thinks of that? That's something that happens in a movie, on a video game. It doesn't happen in real life, but no, it's happening now. And that man, my neighbor, he walked the entire fence line, 5 acres of fencing and cross fencing, looking at every connection, showing me, telling me how it worked, letting me tell him the story of Tim and what our family was going through. And after he left, I just stood there and I realized, wow, God really showed up for me.